Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and today's tutorial is about drop rates and currency, for example. What does it mean is if you are killing an enemy or if you are opening a chest or whatever, then you want to make sure that you get loot. Or get no loot, depending on what the current idea is behind all of that. So what I want to make sure is that I have the possibility to loot with a different rarity on a specific item. Let's say that yellow coin in here is going to be not that rare, so I maybe want to have this coin to be looted with a chance of maybe 80%. This one with a 25%, and this one maybe with just a chance of 5% of the whole loot of whatever we are opening. So, and this is what we're going to do right now and today. So we will calculate if we are able to loot anything, and if we are able to loot anything, then we are going to make sure that at least one of them is going to be looted. So, and I'm going to show you how this is going to work and how you can, improve all your looting. So, what I want to do is today I want to, at first, of course, create a new script, and I call this one, I don't know, maybe currency script or whatever. So, I create a new C# script and call this one, or loot script maybe. This can be attached later on. Or that part can be your enemy behavior later on, or part of your enemy, so you don't have to get directly into that loot script. Otherwise, you can also go into that loot script and use that from that point. It doesn't really matter how you want to use this later on. But I want to make sure that you have the knowledge of how all of that stuff is going to work. We are closing this one since we don't need that. So what I want to do at first is I want to make sure that I have a class which can hold all the information about what is actually lootable. And this class is going to be nested or created inside of the loot script class, and I call this one maybe drop currency. So this is going to be public since I want to see this one later on in the inspector and want to make use of it. Also, I can create a list of everything or an array and use the class as often as I want, and I can decide the drop rarity of every possible item. And of course I can say this is going to be the game object which is currently able to loot. Also, we want to create a name for this one, so a usual string, so we can see stuff later on better. So okay, we create that class. It's going to be public class drop rarity, and this class does not drop rarity, drop currency. And in this class, I will add every item basically later on, and just in the inspector inside. So the first one is going to be a public string, and this is just basically the name of the item which is droppable. There's a small typo. And this is just for better readability. You don't need that name, but actually if you want to work around with that and have 100 of items and you want to see fast which item am I currently in, then you want to make use of a name. Otherwise you don't need to. The next one is going to be the game object we are later on going to instantiate. In my case, it's going to be maybe the currency object or the drop item, or whatever, or just an item. Let's say item. So you can later on put in shoes, a hammer, a sword, or whatever you want to get dropped, or just coins or currency, and whichever, whatever you need. And the last one is of course the rarity of that particular item. I call this one drop rarity. And this can be later on chosen inside directly of the class. So to make this class even visible in the inspector itself, I want to add some square brackets in the top of the class and say system.serializable. Otherwise, we are not able to see that in the inspector and add some stuff inside. Okay, so the next one is I want to create a list of type drop currency, so I can drag in a lot of items I want. I can loop through the whole complete list of all items we are going to have. And we can also use an array. If you like to use arrays, use them. I use lists, or I like to use lists. It's up to you what you want to do. To use lists, I go over and create it, or actually add the new namespace, which is called system.collections .generic, so otherwise we don't have access to lists. And in after the class, I go over and create this one. This needs to be a public list, otherwise we don't see it in the inspector too, of type list. Now we need what is inside the list. It's going to be the drop currency class we just created, and we take a name for this, and maybe call this one loot table or loot or whatever you want. And after the equal sign, we say a new list of type drop currency and open close brackets. So we will get that directly in the inspector, and this is going to be seen, and we can add stuff in. In my inspector itself, I can, or in the hierarchy, I can create an empty game object or whatever you want, which can be, for example, the loot. I don't know, just call this one loot, this game object. This could also be your game manager object. It doesn't really matter, depending on what you want and what you need. So in this gets our script we just created, which is a loot script. And now you can see we have a loot table in here, and I can add 3 items for this one. The first one is going to be my, I don't know, yellow coin. Again, you can name that whatever you want. And the item is going to be a prefab, and the rarity of this, as I said, might be 80% or just 80. The next one is element 2 is going to be a red coin. The red coin is going to be more worth, for example, as the yellow coin, so the rarity needs to be smaller. So we say maybe 25 or 50%, or at least as 50. And the last one is going to be my chest, and this chest is, or a treasure chest, is going to be a drop rarity of maybe 5%. Okay, that's it for everything currently inside the inspector. What we do now is we need to create a new function. I'm gonna delete update and start since we don't need those, but we create our own function now. And this is going to be of type void, and what we want to do is we want to calculate the currency or the current loot. So calculate loot, I call it like this. We don't need anything inside those brackets. So the first one is we can have a drop chance. A drop chance is going to be maybe whatever you want to set the drop chance to, is calculated before we actually start to calculate the loot. So what does that mean is, let's create another public variable in here. So the basic drop chance is of type int in my case. Later on we go over, or may go over, and do the same stuff with floats. You can also use floats, not just ints, but with ints I can explain everything better in here. So what we want to do is we have a drop chance, and this is what we type in here, and we can set this drop chance to maybe 50% in the inspector. If we are going back to the inspector, you will see in just a second there will be a drop chance slot. Now what we can say, maybe 50%. 50 means with a chance of 50% we will get loot, otherwise we don't get loot. So what we now do is, in the calculate loot, is we create, or actually set, the drop chance to anything what we want. For example, if the drop chance we were setting is smaller than our currently created drop chance, then we don't want to loot something, for example. Okay, that means we create a new integer in here and call this one calculated drop chance, or calc drop chance. And this one is going to be calculated with just a random dot range. So in random dot range we can say random range, and in brackets we say we want a range between 0 and 101. 101 is chosen by me because I also want to have a chance of 100%, but if there is only a 100 in here, I would have a chance between 0 and 99, and that's not what I want. I want to make sure that I have the chance to also get 100%. This is the drop chance, or the calculated drop chance to get even any loot. So what I want to do is, after I have calculated this one, don't forget to close the line or end the line. What I want to do now is I want to check if our calculated drop chance is bigger or smaller than this drop chance we just set. So what does it mean is, if there is a drop chance of only 20% and it rolls a number bigger than that, then we don't want to loot anything. Or even we want to loot something, depending on how you want that. So what I can say is, if the calculated drop chance is, for example, bigger than the drop chance we just set by hand, which are the 50%, then we want to do nothing actually, and we want to return. So return, and also we can enter a debug line at this part, and we can say, so debug.log no loot for me. So we can debug that later on and can see if our drop or our calculated drop chance was higher or lower than the drop chance. We can also go in and calculate or actually debug the calculated drop chance. Okay, so let's assume we have a calculated drop chance which is smaller than the drop chance we just had. So we are in the 50% of dropping or getting any loot. Then we go forward in here. So we want to make sure that if the calculated drop chance is smaller or equal than our drop chance, then we want to loot stuff. And now the magic is going to start, and a bit of math. So any item we just have in here in our inspector list has a drop rarity, and this drop rarity can also be named as a weight. So when I have a specific weight, then I want to make sure that I get the item which is actually of that weight or under that weight, but not any other thing actually. So what you want to do is, this item weight needs to be calculated or actually get added overall items you have in your game. So what I say is, I create a new integer and call this one item weight, and I set this one to 0. So this is basically the item we are going to get is calculated with that item weight. So what we do now is we loop through the whole list of loot table and add all item weights to the item weight integer in here. So all drop rarity basically gets added to item weight. So we loop through that list at first. We create the for loop with int I is going to be equal to 0. We start at element 0 in the list of drop currency, or basically of loot table. While I is smaller than loot table dot count, we want to increment I, as we always or almost always do in for loops. And what we want to do is we want to add every stuff in the or from the drop rarity into item weight. So what we do is we say item weight plus equals loot table, then in square brackets I, so we loop through everything until we are in the very end, dot drop rarity. So we add all integer of drop rarity into item weight. In the end, again, we can debug that at any point we want. In the end, we would have an 80 plus a 50 plus a 5, so we would have a 135 in the end. Again, after that, we can debug that just for us and to make this one way better visible. So item weight is going to be equal to item weight. Oh, we need to add a plus in here, so we see that one later on. Like this. So we can now, at this point, when we are calling calculated loot, we can get, and after we are ready with that for loop, we can see how many item weight we actually have. So if you have 100 items in your carrot or in your goblin enemy, I don't know, then you have all the weight added to the item weight in here. So what are we going to do next is we're gonna create another random value in here after we are done with the for loop. The random value is going to be equal to random.range. So what we do is we pick any number from the item weight or inside the range of item weight and 0. So let's say we have at that point 135. We're gonna go over through that whole numbers and choose one of those numbers randomly once again. Let's say we have a number or at this point we just choose any number. Let's say we're gonna get an 80. So when we have the number of 80 chosen, we want to make sure that we loop through our whole loops table once again and see which item is, I would say, closer to the drop rarity. I'm gonna explain this, why we write that. So what we do is we create another for loop in here. We say we create a new integer of j maybe. While j is smaller than, once again, the loot table dot count, since we are in the list, j++, so we increment j at that point. So we loop through again through all items we have in our loot table and we check for the random value we have calculated. So what we want to do is if the random value we just have chosen, in my case maybe the 80, if this random value is smaller or equal to any of the currency's drop rarity. So for example, if we have 80, we want to see if any of that items has a drop rarity of 80 or smaller. So what we say is loot table loot table in square brackets I dot drop rarity. So if this drop rarity, or actually the random value, is the same or smaller than the drop rarity of the currently gone through item, then we want to spawn that item. So in this part, I'm gonna write this out, which is we want to instantiate. And what are we going to instantiate? It's going to be the loot table square brackets I dot, and then we take the game object or the item. And we can, I believe it's a comma, yeah. We want to instantiate the item at, I don't know, transform.position or wherever we want to. Let's say transform.position, so it will be just anywhere, and we can take the quaternion.identity for its original rotation. And what we want to do is, since there is a possibility that we have more than that, oh, it's not going to be I, it's going to be j, I'm sorry for this. In here and in there, since we are looping with j, we need to make sure that it's j in here, not I. And since we are, in here needs to be a comma. I hope you can see this all good. I'm gonna increase the size a bit, so you might want to go over and see this one better. Again, now what we want to do is we want to stop at that point. Since we already have dropped something, if you don't want to drop all of the items you have in the list, which are basically have the same possibility, then you want to make sure that you keep it going. Otherwise, you want to go and return. Return means we go over and break out the for loop and everything is done at that point. And also what we want to do is, if we haven't got anything, then we want to decrement the random value and reduce it by the currently looped through item. So we say the random value minus equal, and then again the loot table in square brackets I dot drop rarity. So if nothing is going to match the number, or it's not I, it's going to be j, sorry again. So if nothing matches with that, so we have, for example, we have that 80, but we don't have any item which is matching that number. Basically, we want to reduce it. Or let's say we reduce at first a number of 4, and the rest of the random value, or that value does not match any of our drop rarity. Then we want to reduce drop rarity and then go over and forward and go to the next part in the for loop. And then we can actually go and do all the other stuff again. Also, we can every time we can debug that, debug.log random value decreased, and then we can output the random value at this point, maybe like this. Okay, and that's everything we want to do. Don't forget to save your loot script and return to Unity. And what I want to do is I want to create quickly a button where I have the possibility, let me just zero this item out, where we have the possibility to click on and then create any random item, or actually calculate everything with that. That's the fastest way. Again, this is going to be called when your enemy dies, or when you open up a chest, or whatever, then it's going to work. Okay, so what we do is, again, I create a pretty quick a button, which is going to make our loot, or create our loot. That's the easiest and fastest way. Drop something, I don't know. That's just the text. Gonna go into 2D mode and maybe place this button a bit more in the middle of the screen. But the whole button, of course. I don't know, somewhere there. And also what I want to make sure is that I go in here and delete those 3 objects. I have prefabs already of them, so I can now drag them into my loot table or loot script. So the first item, let's go to prefabs. The red coin is going to be this, the yellow coin is going to be this, and the chest is going to be, oh no, it's wrong. This is going to be the chest, and the yellow coin is in the very top. And now it should work. When I press a button, I need to make sure that I add an on-click event. I drag in my loot item, and what I want to call is the function to calculate loot. But since it's not public at that point, I need to make sure that this is a public function in here. So public void calculate loot. Don't forget to save. And now again in the button on the loot, there should be our new function in here. There we go. Now it should be here. Then we have calculate loot, and this is going to be called calculated and drop us something or nothing. And we want to make sure that everything is written already in that in the inspector console. So I drop on my button in here, and what I got is I got no loot, since I haven't got the chance to get anything. So now I have something. The null reference is from the script itself, so don't worry. So what I had is an item weight of 135, as I already told you. All of those numbers are called, or actually calculated together. I'm gonna get rid of that coin pretty quick. And again, I had a chance of 80% to get a yellow coin. Then I get sometimes nothing, 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 again a yellow coin. So as you see, the rarer or the more rare the items are, there we go. Now I got a red coin, and here with it only a chance of 25%, I believe. And it should take us a long while, or a long time before we get a chest actually. Like red, yellow, 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 red, yellow, and there we had a chest, as you can see over here. So depending on our luck, basically, we get a lot of yellow coins, since it's a low drop rate or drop rarity. Red coins, we didn't have much right now. We could also go over and count all of them together. And that's what I wanted to show you. So this is a way how you can instantiate one particular object inside your loot table and how you can manage all of the rarity in the items itself. So with a drop rarity of or a chance of 5%, there should be always that 5%. If you get rid of the drop chance itself in the beginning, then you will always get loot. Otherwise you can avoid that. Sometimes player don't get loot. You can also go into the loot game object always and reduce the drop chance from 50% to maybe, I don't know, 20%. So before they actually loot anything, they need a lot of luck. You can also say you want to have a higher chance to drop something from the enemies. But I believe a 50% chance is pretty decent, and then you have also the limit directly in your in your loot table itself. And as you have seen, a 5% drop chance or drop rarity of a chest is pretty low. And for even rarer stuff, you can just say you want only 1%, and this is going to be pretty close call, and needs a while before you get to that, I believe. Okay, so that's it for drop currency or drop items with a loot table, which you are able to design yourself, can add stuff inside. You can actually increase or decrease drop rarity. You can also say you don't want to have something between 0 and 100, but maybe, or basically in here, the calculated drop chance could also be very higher or very much higher, so you have more items you can place in. Maybe you add a 0 in here, so you have a chance between 0 and 1000%, and then you can add in for every percent basically anything you want. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumb this video up if you like it, and feel free to become my patron or donate by using PayPal to support me and my channel in the future. All links will be below in the description. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.